Happy Wednesday, everyone. I am Tiffany Serbus-Gustaveson, a digital strategist with BWG Connect, and we are a network and knowledge sharing group. We stay on top of the latest trends, challenges, whatever's shaping the digital landscape. We want to talk about it. We will do hundreds of these webinars this year due to the increase in demand to better understand the digital space. And we'll also do at least 100 in-person small format dinners. So if you happen to live in a tier 1 city, feel free to shoot us an email or check out our website, bwgconnect.com. We'd love to send you an invite. The dinners are typically 15 to 20 people having a discussion around a certain digital topic, and we always have a great time. We spend the majority of our time talking to brands. That's how we stay on top of the latest trends. I'd love to have a conversation with you, so feel free to drop me a line at Tiffany, Tiffany at bwgconnect.com, and we can get some time on the calendar. It's from these conversations we generate the topic ideas we know people want to learn about, and it's also where we gain our resident experts, such as our panelists who are with us today. Anybody that we ask to teach our community has come highly recommended from multiple brands within the network. So if you're ever in need of any recommendations within the digital space, please don't hesitate to reach out. We have a short list of the best, and we would love to provide that information to you. A few housekeeping items before we get started. First and foremost, we want this to be fun, educational, conversational. Drop the questions, comments into the chat, the Q&A, or you can always email me at tiffany@bwgconnect.com. We will get to them as we roll along. And we started here a few minutes after the hour. Rest assured, we're going to wrap up before the end of the hour to give you ample time to wherever you need to go next. So without further ado, let's do this and start talking about influencing the algorithm, how Nutrabolt scaled their digital growth. The team at ProductWind have been long-term partners of the BWG community. So I'm going to start with you, Samir, and then we will move to Lauren, our special guest from Nutrabolt. Thank you all for joining today.
Great. Thanks, Tiffany. And thank you to the whole BWG group for the partnership and for having us on today. My name is Samir. I'm kind of an old hat in the e-com industry. I started my career at the NPD group in market research, like NPD, IRI kind of stuff. And one of my colleagues at ProductWind and I actually started an e-commerce market share company. We were probably a couple of years too early. People didn't really know that e-commerce had a seat at the table at the time. And then I went on to be an early member of the company Commerce IQ. And I've been tracking ProductWind very closely over the last couple of years. And after talking to some of their clients, couldn't resist coming on board because I'm so passionate about latest, greatest, and sort of like hacking the system, if you will.
Love it. Thank you so much. Lauren.
Hi guys, I'm Lauren Rohr. I currently manage media at Nutrabolt for Amazon. And prior to Nutrabolt, I was at Nestle Health Science and ran media across most of the Nestle Health Science brands for all retailers and Amazon.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Today.
Well, thank you both for joining, and thank you all for joining. So questions, comments, put into the chat and the Q&A as we move along. Lauren has been kind enough to share your story, essentially, of how you were able to gain success using these tactics that we're going to talk about today. So maybe we'll start from the top, Lauren. If you can walk through the key challenges Nutrabolt faced marketing to that retail algorithm before using what is called creator-driven strategies. And maybe let's frame what is creator-driven.
Yeah, Samir can jump in on creator-driven as well, but really anybody who has that social presence and that social following, they are somebody who their social presence and their followers are very loyal to them, and they trust what they are recommending and what their opinions are on products. And so that's who I'm defining as the creator. Are you asking the creator?
Yep, excellent. Yep. Perfect.
Whether they're driving their followers to a product or they're giving a review on a product, that's my definition.
Yeah, to sort of further expand on what Lauren's saying is, in the world we live in today, right? Like the retailer's algorithm is making the decisions about how visible a product is to a consumer. And the reality of the matter is that brands need to market to that algorithm, right? You can't take the algorithm out to a Taylor Swift concert. And where the creators come in is there's different styles of creators, different types of creators to actually send signals to the algorithm to indicate that your product is hot or your product is trending. And that's really where the creators fall in. They seem to be the most efficient way to help drive a product's success.
And can you walk through those challenges, Lauren, that you had at Nutrabolt before working with the retail algorithms and, before using creator-driven strategies?
Definitely. So, the landscape for paid media, it's becoming increasingly more expensive. And we found ourselves subject to that fluctuation of CPMs in this competitive auction, especially around tentpole events. So creator strategies help us rely less on traditional paid media, so that we rank higher organically, which is ultimately where we always want to play. And we can dig deeper into that as we continue on in the conversation. But yeah, really, really learning that just using media isn't enough to scale. And just using Vine on Amazon specifically isn't enough to ramp a new product. So going through those pain points and then discovering ProductWind and how they could help us with some of those solutions has been awesome.
Yeah, Vine, I worked with Amazon Business for 10 years growing home decor on our Amazon store, and Vine was always a very painful process for us and home
Never know
decor.
who you're going to get, right?
So it's like, that's that option. You could maybe do it in tandem with, something
Yeah,
else,
and
but to do
definitely
it
want to
solely and rely
continue.
on Vine is hard.
Right. So definitely want to use it in tandem. But before, what we were doing before using creator-driven strategies was that's what your option is, right? On Amazon. It's your paid media and Vine. So
Period.
Exactly.
that's it.
How do you balance organic and paid marketing efforts on a platform like Amazon?
Um, so we balance organic and paid by using paid to drive organic. So we have part of our budget that's dedicated to chasing ASINs that have high conversion rate but low traffic. We put more spin behind these ASINs as they're proven to convert. And then once they rank higher, then we invest more into other ASINs to keep building them up. So ultimately just continuing to try to move ASINs higher up into higher traffic placements.
And are you working with Amazon in the capacity of 1P, 3P, or hybrid?
1P.
1P. Awesome. Questions, comments put into the chat as we move along. So what role do creators play in driving conversion and sales velocity? And how do you determine which ones best align with your brand at Nutrabolt?
Yeah, I can start this one off and tag team it with Samir, but ultimately they play a critical role in driving conversions and sales, especially as social commerce and influencer marketing continue to grow. A few examples would be driving qualified traffic and higher conversion rate. So unlike traditional ads, creators build the trust with their audience. They're leading to higher intent traffic that converts better. And retail algorithms favor listings with strong click-through and conversion rates, so making creator-driven traffic highly valuable. There's also increasing sales velocity. So a surge in purchases within a short period signals to retail platforms that a product is in demand. Algorithms prioritize that fast-moving product, so pushing them higher in search rankings and increasing organic visibility. There's also generating authentic UGC. So retail platforms are increasingly prioritizing the products with high engagement. Creators contribute by showcasing their real life use cases, unboxing videos, tutorials, testimonials. These all influence that buying decision. And then let's see, expanding reach beyond paid ads. So creators help brands bypass the rising ad costs by tapping into the organic audiences through their social media blogs or video content. They introduce products to niche communities that brands might struggle to reach through traditional advertising. And then I think the last one would be enhancing customer retention, repeat purchases. When customers buy based on trusted recommendations, they're more likely to leave the reviews. They're more likely to repurchase and refer others. And also the algorithms reward the products with positive reviews and lower return rates, leading to like long-term ranking benefits. So those are some of the ways that that creators play in driving that conversion in the sales. And then specifically for Nutrabolt, and what customer aligns best, I'll let Samir tackle that one.
Absolutely. I'm just going to leave this. I'm going to leave this slide up while we're talking about that. But you bring up a good point. And when you're using creators, you need to think about relevancy, right? And it's important that the creators that we activate for a given campaign are relevant to the brand, relevant to the product category. So, for example, we don't want to send dog food to someone who doesn't have a dog, right? That doesn't make any sense. There's going to be no relevancy there. And so one of the things that the creator community, with the uniqueness of the creator community of ProductWind, is that we have a large amount of first party data on these folks. So we know, for example, are they a Walmart member, a Costco member, a Prime member? Do they purchase products in the energy drink category? Do they have a high propensity to leave ratings and reviews? Do they produce high quality content, and do they produce it on time? Do they share the product out with their network? Do they have high engagement rates if they're a social creator? And so for every single campaign that we run with our clients, like Nutrabolt, for example, we get a product brief of what's this product about, who is it targeted towards, and then how do we get that product in the hands of the right relevant folks?
I love that. And I love that the algorithm. I think back my beginning of my career, I worked in home shopping, and the phrase was always, you're only as good as your last show on home shopping. And I feel like now in e-commerce, you're only as good as your last algorithm, right? Like you gotta appease the algorithm and always like take it as like something at the table. It's no longer just you and the buyer. A lot of times you don't even have the corporate buyer in front of you anymore. It's the algorithm, the elusive algorithm. So questions, comments put into the chat as we move along. So we love real world examples here at BWG. So can we get a real world example of where this made an impact using this creator generated content?
Yeah. We recently, we just recently had a new product that we launched, and we started support with a ProductWind campaign soon after it launched. It had been live for a few weeks before we launched the campaign, but what we saw in comparing the weeks before launch of the ProductWind campaign versus during launch was significant. So we saw a 300% increase in sales during the campaign and over a 1,700% increase in traffic versus
Wow.
what that ASIN was driving the week before the launch. So very, very significant impact. Now, I do like to be realistic. Once the campaign ends, that performance will most likely dip a little, which is where you have to start working on your strategy. Do you keep campaigns running on more of an evergreen approach, or just pulse them during key timeframes? So there's a lot of strategy goes into it, how we work with the ProductWind team and maintaining that performance. And it all depends on the ASIN. Is it a new product? Is it existing? So, yeah.
Is it variated? Is it not variated?
Yeah.
What are consumers saying about the product?
And that's a really good point of the ASIN itself, because you think a lot of times it's a new product launch because you're excited about this new product, you want to launch it. But let's talk about that. Like, how does this tactic work for those existing SKUs? Or I think back of our key SKUs that maybe were out of stock for a bit, and then now we have to rev it back up to get that momentum back. Like, where does this fit in the toolbox with those type of items?
Yeah, so the example of a product going out of stock is a great one, right? So new product launches are obviously a very key use case, right? Tentpole events, it makes all the sense in the world to get your product ranked as high as you can before you're putting marketing dollars behind it. If you have a product that's gone out of stock and it's coming back in stock, once the product goes out of stock, a signal is sent to the algorithm, right? That's a sort of a negative signal on this product. Its discoverability is going to drop drastically. And so at that point, once you know you're coming back into stock, you want to start sending signals to the algorithm that this product is again, now it's hot and trending again. And the way you do that is through a campaign, right? That's driving traffic and clicks to the actual PDP. You have an existing product, let's say you launch a product's been out for a year. It might not be hitting the goals that you want. So you want to give it a little bit of a boost. Or you might have, let's say, a star rating that is suboptimal, right? This thing comes out of the gate. And oftentimes this is because there might actually be a legitimate issue with the product. So a couple of things that would work is one is you get feedback from the customers on what they like, what they don't like, and then you go fix that problem for your next product. But for your existing product, because the creators who are getting the product are so relevant, they can actually send a signal that this product's star rating is actually rising. So let's say you're like a 3.9, you want to go to a 4, right? That's going to send a different signal to the algorithm and make the product more discoverable. You could run a campaign with a few hundred people, and sometimes it takes time depending on how many reviews there are, right? So if you're at 3.9 with 10 reviews and you want to go to 4 stars, that's much easier than you're 3.9 with 1,000 reviews and you want to go to 4 stars, right? You need that many, that's that many more people.
The reviews is a great point too. Because so new product launches, obviously you don't have that yet. Would you say going and using this strategy with somebody who is on social media influencer to drive with no reviews? Or is that where you're working in tandem with the Vine program? Or you're doing Vine before or during or after this strategy? Just
So
curious.
you could comment, Lauren, on when you guys are running Vine versus when you're running ProductWind, and then I could talk about when it's recommended to run a program on a new product.
Yeah, so we do Vine right out of the gate, like when we're launching, like we want to launch with as many reviews as possible. And then we stagger ProductWind to come in after that. So either right at launch or typically maybe a few weeks after just because
The key, the
I usually recommend like starting ProductWind a few weeks after an ASIN is live because you want to work out the kinks. Maybe we don't have our Prime eligibility badge yet. Maybe, there's a few things that happen right when you launch. So I like to wait and run ProductWind once all of those kinks are worked out.
Mm.
And then we'll come in, right? And then very quickly we'll send the search signals, right? The ranking signals. And then also what happens is with the campaign is we've mentioned speed to reviews. How quickly can we get you to 50 reviews? Right? How quickly can you get you to 20 reviews, 30 reviews, 50 reviews, et cetera. And once you hit that scale, now your product, you could run limited media at that point. And then as soon as you get to that, let's say 50 review mark, you could ramp that up. And your product has already gone from number 300 to number 15 or from 200 to number 10. And that's going to make those media dollars so much more efficient.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And again, going back to Lauren's point of the algorithm, and especially Amazon's, likes that social media traffic coming back to them, that offsite traffic. That's definitely preferred. I remember those days of being able to send samples out and get reviews, and it's kind of shady of like, is this even like legal in the Amazon world? Like it might get, penalized or my account frozen because I'm doing these tactics. So again, this is something that they they love. So it's a win-win on both sides there. Very cool. Questions, comments put into the chat in the Q&A. Would you say, Samir, best practice when you work with all these different brands is to do a solution like ProductWind a few weeks after the new product launch to work
Yes,
out
it
those
depends.
kinks?
Depending on the use case, right? Like, yes, in this case, that makes all the sense in the world, right? We want to make sure that there's no problems when we launch a campaign so that the campaign can be as successful as it possibly can. We generally recommend running that campaign as early as we can, right? Like, whether it's launch or 3, 4 weeks after launch is the right sort of the sweet spot to do that. If you wait too long, there's a lot of things that are out of your control that may take longer to remedy or to fix. So, for example, let's say you wanted to wait 3 months to run the ProductWind campaign, and some of the reviews that started coming in were not exactly what you were hoping for. That's going to take a much heavier lift at that point to get that product back to a state of retail readiness. If you start the campaign early, and what we find is when you use relevant creators, the star rating tends to be, I think it's 4.8 or something like that, tends to be the average star rating that you get. You get them very quickly. It's a much more efficient in both cost as well as time to get that product to a retail ready state.
And then for, looking at big promo events, well, let's start before we go into like a Prime Day. When you do a strategy like this, do you see most of your brands doing promo pricing out of the gate to accelerate that conversion, or they're going in with their regular pricing?
Ahead of at launch or ahead of or at a promotional period?
Once
Like,
they've implemented a solution like ProductWind.
yeah, so you can list out of the gate, right? New product right at MSRP, right? Without a promotion. When you do want to run a promotion, right? A few months later, whether it's Prime Day, Father's Day, what have you, what you want to do at that point is 6 weeks before that event, whatever the date, whatever that promotional period or the promotional date is, you want to run the ProductWind campaign at that point. And the reason you want to do that is traffic is going to be lower in that time frame. So you're going to have the ability to impact your share of voice and your rank much easier than trying to do it on such a busy day like Prime Day or Father's Day.
Mm-hmm. Then post event, like post Prime Day, do you rev it
Yes.
back up?
Yes, absolutely. And what you want to do is post that event, see what momentum you're able to maintain, right? And oftentimes, once you've gotten that organic rank, a lot of times you are able to maintain that, right? Because you've earned that. And then if you see a dip, right, then you can do what Lauren was talking about earlier, right? Let's run something evergreen so we're constantly sending small signals, right? We never want to send a tsunami of a signal to the algorithm, right? We don't want to have, if this product sells 500 units a month, we don't want to have 1,000 people buy it on one day, right? We want to pace that out day by type of creator, et cetera. And so the
Mm-hmm.
content, the reviews come in at a nice cadence. The traffic comes in at a nice cadence.
And that's what's
Yeah.
really cool about the ProductWind team and their capability is their creators, they have them on a schedule. So they're pulsing out the traffic, the search that they're going after or buying the product, et cetera. They're pulsing that out across multiple weeks so that there's no chance of that happening where there's too many creators searching or buying on the same day. So that's what's really great about working with them.
That's a really good point that it is spread out and it's not like you said that tsunami where the algorithm would be like, well, that's an anomaly and
Yeah,
it's
you don't want to get
discredited.
flagged by Amazon.
Yeah. Nobody wants to get flagged. No. Keep bringing questions, comments into the chat. Biggest misconceptions. So, what are some of those conceptions that brands have about the retail algorithm and how it affects product placement?
Yeah. I can take some of these. I think there's a lot. I think a lot of people um think that sales volume is the only ranking factor and sales velocity matters, but conversion rate, reviews, and fulfillment speed also influence the ranking. So I think there's maybe a lack of education around like what all goes into it. And I think Samir's slide that he shared shows a lot of it, a lot of what impacts the algorithm. So another misconception is like paid ads directly boost organic ranking. Ads increase visibility and sales, yes, which can improve organic ranking over time, but they don't guarantee a direct ranking boost. So, going back to what Nutrabolt was doing before, working with ProductWind, like, we're trying to drive with paid ads, but we're just not getting that increase in ranking that we're looking for. Keywords alone drive ranking. Keyword optimization is important, but click-through rate, add to cart, customer retention are also key ranking factors. Reviews, maybe people think reviews are just social proof, but algorithms prioritize listings that have high ratings and recent reviews and consistent engagement. So it's another one that impacts the algorithm. And then also all marketplaces use different algorithms. So I think like a lot of people think it's the same algorithm across platforms, but whether Amazon or Walmart, it's different ranking factors. So requiring platform-specific optimization strategies is necessary.
Prime shipping badge, important. Do you say the 1 to 2 day shipping? Is it table stakes that you got to have it?
Samir, maybe you can help me out on how Prime affects the ranking. Obviously, it impacts conversion and sales.
Yeah,
How
it
would
doesn't
you,
impact the ranking as
right?
much. It's a factor. I wouldn't say it's one of the top factors that we're focused on.
Yeah. But obviously we know the impact of Prime Badge on conversion rate, you know,
On conversion rate, but not necessarily the algorithm.
right? Not necessarily like the direct correlation to your ranking.
Got it. So how do you measure? So how are you measuring the success of a campaign to know this strategy is working?
Do you want to take how you measure, Samir? And I'm
Yeah,
happy to share what I look
yeah,
at, the metrics I look at.
let me share how we look at it. And so every campaign is unique, right? Like we talked about we have these different classifications of creators, right? So a social influencer has a different use case for a campaign than someone who's likely to leave a rating and review, or someone who we're utilizing to drive traffic, who might not be, their purpose isn't to build high quality word of mouth sort of content. And so for every campaign, there's just a few things that you want to look at. So the first thing that you want to look at is, how many page one wins do I want to earn in this time period on relevant keywords, right? And so if you have certain keywords that you want to win on, so you want to focus on. So I might say for a campaign, I might say to Lauren, hey, for this campaign, I'm going to get you between 10 and 15 page one wins. And like I said, everything's paced out, right? So as a campaign, let's say a campaign is 6 weeks long. 3 weeks into that campaign, I'll have an idea of how that's pacing, right? And so we know very early how the campaign is going. And then we're big on the under promise, over deliver as much as we can. And then we'll also look at the number of the reviews that are left by the creator. So basically, we may say you want to get to 50 reviews. So in order for us to do that, we understand how likely it is for creators to leave a review. So you're not asking for a review. You're not allowed to do that, right? Specific to the Amazon platform. So we know over time, if if one of our creators has made 100 purchases on Amazon and they've left 5 reviews, they're unlikely to leave a review. So we probably wouldn't select them for the campaign. If someone else who has made 100 purchases has left 60 reviews or 70 reviews, we know they're more likely to leave a review. So that reviews are that second KPI. All right, how do we get to 25 or 50? And we'll base the number of creators on that KPI. And then we'll also look at things like, how much traffic do we estimate we're going to drive to the PDP, right? And so think about what we're trying to do is we're trying to act as a magnet through all these varying signals. As the ProductWind campaign is running, the rest of the general public, right, the organic sales, the organic clicks start coming through as this product is ranked higher and higher. And I think, Lauren, I don't know, we've run a ton of campaigns with you guys, but I think every single one we've hit the KPI metrics.
Every time he's telling the truth. They under promise and over deliver. For me, I kind of narrow in on a couple of the metrics that I'm always looking for and prioritize in our campaigns. So one is really looking at once you run a campaign, you can see the full list of search terms that creators were searching and that we're ranking on. I really look for the top ones in the category. I know the others are important too, Samir. I realize they all kind of like contribute into the campaign, but for one main one for Nutrabolt is energy drinks. So I'll look at that top category term and where did we improve? Like, how did we go? Did we go from page 2 to page 1? That's the first thing that's very important. We know the impact on sales when an item is ranked on page 1 versus 2. So the organic page 1 wins is one that I hone in on. And the other one is the organic search impressions. Every time a new campaign wraps, I can't wait to look at the organic search impressions and see where we started pre-launch versus where we were each week of the campaign. That's always a really strong indicator for me as well of how the campaign performed.
Yeah, I bet that one's really exciting to look at.
Yeah. And Tiffany, we were talking, or Lauren was talking earlier about the results with the product. And one of the things that we try and look at, right, is think of like an A/B test. What do results typically look like with the ProductWind campaign? and then what were the results for non-ProductWind campaigns for something similar. And so
Mhm.
we'll look at dozens and dozens of campaigns that we've run, and we'll pick similar products and say, hey, you know, the creator strategy drove 7.5 times the amount of traffic. The creator strategy drove 2.5 times the amount of sales. And it's not like a onesie twosie sort of thing. Like this is across dozens of campaigns, right, in the portfolio.
Awesome. Questions, comments, put them into the chat as we round it out here. Trends in 2025. Would love your guys' insights on what trends you're seeing in e-commerce marketing this year.
Yeah, I was thinking through a couple of these. I think AI powered personalization is going to continue to expand. So algorithms will start favoring listings that tailor product recommendations and ads to individual consumers. I think that's going to start really ramping up in 2025. The rise of voice and visual. So brands should optimize product titles, descriptions, and alt text for voice and image-based searches, I think is a really important one. Social commerce and UGC, so platforms like TikTok Shop, Instagram Shopping, YouTube Shopping, they'll play a bigger role in influencing rankings. And then sustainability and ethical shopping preferences. I think retailers may adjust algorithms to highlight eco-friendly and ethically sourced products as that consumer demand rises. And then stronger first-party data strategies with privacy changes, limiting third-party tracking. I think brands need to collect and leverage first-party data for retargeting and organic ranking. I don't know if you have any others to add to that, Samir.
Yeah, I've got a couple, and because we talk to a ton of folks, right? And a lot of the folks that we look at are, they've got centers of excellence. They're looking for different things to test and learn. And this is like the reason I came to ProductWind, because they're doing something unique. One of the things I've been hearing a lot about lately is sort of this, like, I guess it's Amazon's called Rufus, right? You're talking about the AI personalization of really how do we change this sort of the search behavior. I think Walmart tested and Amazon's testing it is, instead of searching for plates, right, you search for July 4th party, right? And you get things from a whole host of different product categories that are relevant for throwing a party on the 4th of July. And so Rufus is going to be a very, very interesting one, I think, this year. And I think it'll probably really start taking off in 2026 in terms of how much attention brands are paying to it and figuring out how to, essentially then how do you market to Rufus?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rufus will be at the table with the algorithm. Now we got to
Yep.
appease him.
Yeah, it's a very funny story. One of my colleagues at ProductWind just got a dog, and the dog's name is Rufus.
Rufus. Love it. All right, we got interesting comment here. I like this. So, what is considered page one nowadays with so many people shopping on mobile where there's 50 plus SKUs, you have to be scrolling to even get to a page two, or use Gen AI shopping assistants in search?
Okay. So for the Gen AI piece, right, because that's still new and it's not sort of widely adopted, I'm going to take that to the side, right? Because like I said, if it's going to happen, we're going to focus on it. But for the mobile versus the desktop question, that's an interesting one, right? Because like on a mobile device, the answer is going to be different based upon what device you have, right? If you have a 5-inch iPhone, right, what you see and what you scroll is going to be different than if you are doing it on a 6-inch iPhone, or if you're doing it on a tablet, right? And then obviously going back to the original page one of like page one, page two on a desktop, the way that we measure it, right, ultimately that we can make recommendations, but we look specifically at where your product is ranked, the actual number, right? Are you the 300th ranked or are you the 5th ranked? And so you can then start looking at how many placements you have in the top 50, how many placements you have in the top 30, how many placements you have in the top 10, how many placements you have in the top 5.
Really good. Yeah, it's Interesting to look at it that way, right? Because gone are those days where you're just on that desktop and here's page 1 to page 2, and so forth. So great question. Keep them coming. Final questions put into the chat or the Q&A. So looking ahead, how do you see the role of creator-driven marketing evolving in e-commerce? And how should brands adapt?
I can go first. I think it kind of goes back to one of the last points, one of the trends in 2025 around social commerce and UGC. I think that brands, really need to start prioritizing what UGC that they're putting out and how that's being displayed across their channels, their retailers. So are you using that UGC in your carousel images on Amazon? How are you using that, and how are you always generating new content from your creators? I think that's a cool thing that ProductWind offers. Like, all of the content that our creators are creating is accessible to us, and we can use that. Like, we're able to use that on any of our channels and platforms. I think that's a really important one, because we think that that will start having a larger influence on your ranking, and you need that to consistently be generating like fresh content. Just getting UGC up there on your pages isn't enough. You have to have that strategy of like, how are we refreshing this and continuing to get new content ideas in. That's my recommendation.
Love it. Samir, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously I agree wholeheartedly with what she's saying, is that this concept of UGC and being a brand and being able to pick and choose what UGC is relevant for what purpose, right? So you might find a video you like and you want to use it on your PDP in a sponsored video. You might find a video you like and say, hey, I want to put this in a television commercial, right? Or you might want to use it in a DSP ad. But to the social aspect of it, right, with so many people consuming content on Instagram and TikTok Shop really sort of starting to emerge, where creators really come in is now a brand has sort of truly authentic content that they can use and they can leverage, which consumers tend to gravitate to.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah, this is more of like a comment. And again, it's early days of Rufus, right? We don't have a lot of data around it, but attendee is asking how much are Amazon shoppers actually using Rufus, and that Amazon has not released any data on the Rufus usage publicly. Do you think that will change?
Yeah, so that was actually one of the things that I was talking about with when I was saying Rufus in terms of being a trend, is that adoption's very low. So like, I would encourage anyone on this call, right? Go ask your friends and family, think about your personal usage of Rufus. I know, so like I'm knee deep in this space and I use Rufus very infrequently today, right? It's not part of my day to day. It's not part of my friends and family day to day for the most part, but it is starting to tick up, right? And so start hearing the trickle of conversations that people start talking about when I start hearing different brands asking questions. Rufus is coming up, right? The personalization, the AI component is starting to come up more and more. I don't think it's going to really be relevant till next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's early stage for sure. Final question here. Do you feel professional recommendations or digitally influenced social reviews, PDPs, are more important or relevant to the consumer?
I would
I mean,
think, go ahead. Yeah, you go first.
I was just going to say, I feel like it's consistently increasing the number of consumers that are looking for the real life influence or influencer use review. So they want to see, they want to see somebody professional, but I think the hard part is like, and it all depends on what the product is. Are we talking about collagen peptides, or are we talking about an energy drink? It kind of depends, but not only do you want to know that it's clinically backed or doctor approved, I don't think that's enough. Like, you also want to know who's used it and how did it solve a problem for them? Did it help their hair grow? Did it give them the energy to get through their study session, their workout, etc.? So I think it's both, but I definitely think it's continuing to increase on the influenced side of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just the authenticity of what you see from the UGC creators is, I don't know, I think it's far and away more impactful and more important in today's day and age than having this, like she was saying, this, physician approved type of thing.
Yeah, people want to hear from real people, real experiences, and it's okay if it's not perfect
That's
photos or video, kind of like the more gritty, the better, which is
exactly.
pretty exciting. Awesome. Well, that wraps up our session. Samir and Lauren, thank you so much for your time, your expertise. Lauren, thank you for sharing your story. Samir and team at ProductWind, they are awesome at what they do. So we definitely encourage follow-up conversation with the ProductWind team, and check out Nutrabolt on Amazon. Awesome product as well. So with that, it is a wrap. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Take care and hope to see you on another event soon.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.